Morning, and thank you for coming. This has been a week of fast-moving developments, as you all know, as we've been dealing with this pandemic. When the governor made his announcement for reopening Florida, we were flooded with media requests seeking what the mayor's views were. So we wanted to make him available. We want to make him available to you this morning, and that's why we're having this news conference. We kind of threw it together. Mayor Demings will make a statement, and then he will answer questions. Also joining us today will be Orange County Attorney Jeff Newton for any legal matters. Mayor.
All right. Thank you, Jane, and thank you to all of you for being here today. As Jane indicated, many of you have asked questions about my reaction to Governor DeSantis' plan to reopen Florida. The governor announced he is loosening restrictions on businesses and gatherings starting Monday, May the 4th. The governor's plan, known as Phase 1, while in many instances it has a happy balance there between the health and safety needs of Floridians versus the economic well-being of Floridians. I see it as something that, for the most part, is fairly sensible, but it does have a bit of ambiguity and will require clarification during the coming days. The governor's plan is one that has done several things. It allows for a soft reopening for restaurants and retail establishments while keeping schools operating on distance learning. Of course, our schools at this point will not reopen for the remainder of this school year, but as we approach the summer months, there is still some issues related to the schools here within Florida and certainly here within Orange County. The order also, in terms of assisted living facilities, they remain closed to the public, and I think that's the right balance. The county attorney is reviewing documents to advise me further. A local authority is not expressly preempted, which points to the economic recovery task force that we have put in place here in Orange County. It remains significant for us. The Orange County Economic Recovery Task Force is working hard to come up with solutions that will help restart our businesses while keeping their employees as well as the residents safe. All 4 working groups are meeting today. Of course, those are virtual meetings, and they are being broadcast live on Orange TV. The 4 working groups are the Reopening Business Work Group, the Business Readiness Work Group, the Bringing Back Tourism Work Group, and the Business Compliance and Consumer Confidence Work Group. All of the task force members are really wrestling with the issues that no one has ever had to face before in this community. There really is no roadmap or template for dealing with a pandemic in modern times. But I know they will come up with solutions that will make sense for Orange County, and I will now take a few questions at this time. Okay, questions?
Go ahead. Mayor, yesterday when I had asked you about if the governor's date would come before Orange County's potential date, you didn't really think that would happen. Were you surprised that it was this early, and do you think that Orange County will have an opening date that will be beyond that, or are you going to go with the May 4th?
I was not surprised by the governor's announcement yesterday. Of course, he had telegraphed that he intended to do it as early as Monday of this week. So, in fact, it ended up being Wednesday. In terms of what that means for Orange County's reopening, our work groups are going to continue their review and make recommendations to me. Whether or not they're able to get that done by the close of business tomorrow remains to be seen. But when we began this week, we endeavored to put a timeline on the Economic Recovery Task Force to have some recommendations to me by the end of this week. Because of the magnitude of what they're dealing with, they may or may not be able to meet the deadline for tomorrow. But we will have to digest their recommendations and then do something that is sensible for our residents here in Orange County. As I read the governor's order, it did not expressly preempt local governments from coming up with certain guidelines that are unique to their circumstance. And so if there was anything that I saw positive about that, we still have the ability to look within our respective communities to make decisions. And I would do that going forward.
And excuse me, one other thing I wanted to ask this morning on the task force work group meeting discussion, they were talking about how hair salons and barber shops were kind of left out of this. What are your thoughts on what should happen with the hair salons and barber shops? I know the task force was asking if you could help put some pressure on the governor to open those up. They just feel like without any date in mind, they're not sure if they can survive.
I remain open on that very issue. Obviously, the only way that our hair salons and barbershops, et cetera, would be able to reopen is if they were able to meet the CDC guidelines or the Department of Health guidelines in terms of social distancing that would allow their patrons to remain safe. We're going to allow our task force to continue with that dialogue, and then we'll make an appropriate decision for our community. I can tell you that one of the small business owners here, Mr. John Henry, I'm not sure he's here he's not here in the chambers, but I had the opportunity to speak with him earlier this morning, and as a small business owner, you know, they're certainly struggling. As I interpret the governor's order, it did not expressly close hair salons or barbershops, but it said that if they open, they cannot engage in cutting hair, et cetera, but they could continue to sell products from their particular businesses. In other words, he gave them the opportunity to be open but modify their business model. We will endeavor to make certain that if we make decisions going forward about hair salons and barbershops, that we do so with an abundance of guidance from our healthcare experts, that is something that would not indirectly imperil their patrons to the spread of the virus itself. So I remain open on that. We haven't made any decisions. We're just trying to let the work of our task force continue at this point.
Mayor, as you said, the order doesn't preempt further restrictions from local governments. So should restaurants here in Orange County that can open with outdoor seating and at 25% capacity, should they be planning on opening on Monday, or do you expect to issue further guidance before then?
In the absence of some recommendations from our task force that can get to me in a timely manner, those entities would be able to reopen on Monday as long as they do so in compliance with the governor's order. And that, of course, means that in terms of inside seating, they have to limit that to 25% of their occupancy capacity. As it relates to outside seating, they would be able to do so as long as they would be able to institute the social distancing criteria. That is, the patrons will have to be seated 6 feet or further away. And so that is something that if you follow the guidelines, the CDC guidelines, and even the Florida Department of Health guidelines, they may be able to do so safely.
Mayor, I understand construction, it was announced this morning that construction on Epic Universe is going to be paused. What does that mean for Orange County, especially given that a large part of our economy is tourism? What does that mean to you? I
was contacted yesterday by senior officials from Universal, and what they said to me was that their overall construction project is going to be delayed by a year. However, they're going to continue with $300+ million worth of construction that is really underway at this time. So in terms of the impact on our economy, there still will be robust construction activity centered around that development itself.
The other thing, and I know you touched on specifically restaurants, but Monday, the 4th, can we also expect retailers as well then to be able to open with those limited restrictions? If retailers can open, do you plan on imposing stricter restrictions, or do you plan on following the governor's guidelines?
In terms of retail establishments having the ability to open storefronts, the governor's guideline calls for those retail establishments to be possibly to open as long as they would be also operating at 25% of their occupancy. But they too, it is recommended that they follow the CDC guidelines as well in terms of social distancing and other protective measures that will be put in place for the patrons of their businesses. So we are still trying to understand all of what the governor put in his order. As I said when we started out, there's a certain amount of ambiguity there, but suffice it to say that the governor had contemplated retail establishments such as, small businesses or individual businesses within a mall complex being able to reopen, but with strict guidance there. There are recommendations there about where each individual business may have to look at its own unique experience to provide the consumer confidence to its patrons. If you're like me, for me to feel comfortable going into any of these types of facilities, I want to see a certain sanitary measures in place. I want to see whether or not the employees are wearing masks or the other people coming in are wearing masks. The malls, I can tell you, we have a representative of the Millennium Mall on our Economic Recovery Task Force, and they have to be able to reasonably meet the demand of people entering their malls, whether or not they will do some type of temperature screening of individuals going in. They are all having those conversations in preparation to potentially open. Whether that's May 4th or not, there's nothing that says that a business must open on that day. The businesses continue to have discretion about when they open subsequent to that date, but at the earliest that they will be able to open would be on May the 4th. Again, each day we have multiple meetings of our Economic Recovery Task Force that really is delving into some of the specificity associated with these reopenings to give us the kind of guidance. My desire is to make certain that as the mayor of Orange County, businesses operating here within Orange County receive additional guidance. Where there's ambiguity, we will try to clarify that within the short term to be able to give our citizens guidance. You can anticipate that we will give that guidance via either public media events or using social media or other means to be able to communicate what is acceptable and what is the required here within Orange County. You've also heard me say previously that what we're trying to do is also ensure that there's a regional feel to what we will put in place. So I do have to have a conversation that we're in the process of organizing with other counties here within the region and the leadership of those counties to see if there's an opportunity to have some commonality so that as our citizens live here in the metro area can have some consistency in what we will be doing county by county in this area.
Mayor, so if you're saying that restaurants and retail businesses can plan to open at the 25% on Monday, who's going to monitor that they stay at those levels? How are you going to regulate that?
In terms of the regulatory authority, of course, the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulations has regulatory authority over businesses, and they will maintain that. In terms of any type of health-related mandates, that kind of inures to either the Florida Department of Health, the Centers for Disease Control, or other regulatory authorities. And then lastly, part of what the governor said was that, gatherings of 10 or more was expressly not recommended here within the state of Florida. And he pivoted and said, of course, that's a law enforcement related issue to do enforcement there to regulate, the gatherings. So our local law enforcement in some cases may be pulled into the enforcement activities, but generally speaking, those broad directives that the governor put out, they are state agencies that are responsible for the enforcement.
Follow-up to that. So what would that look like? Would the Department of Health send somebody to each place to make sure that they have that 25% capacity?
It could look like an agent of the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulations going out. It could look like an inspector from the Department of Health. It could look like if there's a complaint filed, the local law enforcement may go in and gather information about it to see if there is compliance with the law itself. So that's what it will look like. It will be multiple entities that will have that regulatory authority to enforce the provisions of the governor's directive. Of course, it's a misdemeanor to violate the mandates within the governor's order.
And lastly for me, do you anticipate any further restrictions anywhere in the Phase 1 plan for Orange County being put on top of what the governor
I can't
said?
answer that question now because the committees are continuing to work. And so I'm going to let them do their work and come up with recommendations so that I'm not steering their work so significantly that it impedes their ability to be objective and to offer their own opinions.
Mr. Mayor, Curtis McLeod with Spectrum News 13. You mentioned some ambiguities and clarifications as it relates to the requirements for PPE for restaurants and retail businesses. Have you guys discussed what will be needed in regards to PPE? And is the county going to provide that to business owners?
Okay. Obviously, in the governor's order, he specifically said in that order that businesses could reopen without the reliance on federal or state supplies to reopen to meet those CDC guidelines, et cetera. So within Orange County, to date, we don't have the capacity to provide personal protective equipment to every business, but we're trying to understand that if we have options there, if a business is not able to acquire the very protective equipment that they need in order to be reopened, is there a separate supply chain that we would be able to access if the businesses didn't have the funding to do it? We're trying to understand all of that. We are the recipients of CARES Act funding. As you know, Orange County to date has received about $243 million. That funding, is it possible to use a portion of that funding to be able to acquire PPE to distribute to businesses? We don't know the answer to that at this point. We're trying to understand that. And even if it was allowable, do we have the ability to actually purchase it or acquire it on behalf of businesses? So again, didn't have a lot of notice. The governor chose the May the 4th. For whatever reason, and all of those are the types of things that if you're going to put a mandate in place, you have to reasonably provide for the citizenry to be able to meet that need, to be able to get the PPE, the sanitary hand sanitizers and other things that would need to be put in place. So that's what I would tell you. That is one of those areas, if you ask me, creates a little bit of ambiguity and a little bit, if I were a business owner, a little bit of consternation there if I have not been already able to acquire that. Sometimes to acquire the supplies that you need, it may take more than 3 or 4 days. Tomorrow, obviously, is the 1st of May, and 3 days from then, and we have the weekend in there. Being able to try to acquire that by the 4th may be a challenge for some businesses. So again, I say to you that that's just, it's a target date. There are going to be businesses that may meet the criteria that the governor laid out, and they still won't open on May 4th because they are unable to be able to meet all of those particular criteria.
Mayor, as far as the stay-at-home order and the nightly curfew, moving forward, are those orders still in place here in Orange County?
The nightly curfews will remain in effect. We will look at that for an indefinite period of time. And the reason being, we still have a significant number of businesses that remain closed. In terms of the governor's order, the most recent order, he didn't specifically talk about non-essential versus essential businesses within that order. It's kind of implied from previous orders, but as I see it, there will still be a significant number of businesses that, even with this order, still will not be able to reopen. And even those that will reopen, they will open based on hours of how they project that they will receive patrons. So I suspect that many businesses are going to have reduced hours. Even if they open, they will have reduced hours, and because of the number of businesses that will remain closed, it creates some challenges for law enforcement to be able to make certain that those businesses remain protected. And as a result of that, I think that we can reasonably say that we should keep the nightly curfews in place.
Excuse me, there's one right up here.
This one's coming in from Ryan Lynch in the Orlando Business Journal. You mentioned, Mayor, how county responses may be different from each other in terms of response. How might county plan to work with each other with these new state recommendations?
Okay. Again, the Economic Recovery Task Force that we have put in place here in Orange County has representatives from the surrounding counties, from Seminole Lake and Osceola counties, a part of our Economic Recovery Task Force. I did that deliberately to try to ensure that the conversation and communication across county lines would result in hopefully a consistent messaging and application of any laws that we put in place during this state of emergency.
He followed up too, for businesses not included in the first round or the first phase, what would you tell them to expect maybe in the coming weeks?
Okay, in terms of businesses that were not included in this phase one, as I look at the governor's directives, they are not time certain. Again, I speak to the ambiguity. I couldn't really tell how long the order would be in place. And if the county attorney disagrees with anything that I'm saying, he's read it. I've read it multiple times. It's a bit of uncertainty about how long the order will remain in place. It remains in place, as I read what was written, until the governor decides otherwise. And so I think with that, looking within our respective counties, we have to prepare for the next phases. Of course, what determines going from one phase of reopening to the next phase is the data that will be captured by the healthcare organizations. this reopening has to be monitored, and the goal here is to ensure that there are no new cases or no new significant cases that will be derived from this reopening. You know, our goal is to get to a sustained period of time where we have 0 new cases within our respective jurisdictions. And we're not yet there, although the numbers seem to be declining weekly where they are low. We still have daily new cases. We have to couple with that an increase in the level of testing. So what Governor DeSantis said, and what I'm saying, here is that in order for me to make appropriate decisions in consultation with our members of the Board of County Commission, we have to understand the data. If the data certainly changes by this reopening and we see the numbers spike, well, guess what's going to happen? We're going to continue to hold things in place or either ratchet it back down. If for a sustained period of time, for perhaps a 2+ week period of time, those numbers continue to decline, then it would be reasonable to say that the actions that have been put in place did not exacerbate the problem that we have with this pandemic.
Final question.
Yeah, quick follow to something that you had mentioned earlier with construction on Epic Universe continuing. Do you know if that will be road construction or park construction that'll continue?
It'll be related to road construction and site development. There's an awful lot that has to occur with site development in the ground before you see vertical structures that go up. So over time, you know, the delay by a year, you know, that's what they're seeing right now. With their financial models, they have to be able to balance cash flows. And if our economy recovers faster than any of us expect, then I think they have created the allowance that they could advance that construction even faster. If we are slow to recover, who knows, that date may slide further into the future. But the goal of the Economic Recovery Task Force that we have put in place is to hopefully stimulate the recovery balance with the economic recovery balance with being safe in terms of the pandemic itself. Okay. If there are no other questions, hopefully I answered your questions. Hopefully this has been instructive as we continue to meet within our various task forces within the next 24 to 48 hours or so. We will come back with additional directives and clarity for you. Thank you for being here.
Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings there responding to the governor's announcement from yesterday about reopening the state's economy, doing that in phases, announcing that phase 1 will start on Monday. You heard the mayor several times talk about the ambiguity in all of this, and that really was probably the focus of his briefing there, talking about how there's so many things that need clarification, so many questions we don't know about the businesses that will be allowed to reopen on Monday, but also he emphasized that Orange County still has some control over what happens next. His task force is still meeting, the work groups meeting today. He mentioned 4 of them that are meeting today. And he had hoped that by Friday, tomorrow, maybe the task force would have a recommendation about how Orange County's plan will look. But he says that may not happen. The work groups have several things to consider. But again, he's just focusing there on so many things here that need clarification, and then also just how much control Orange County will have about setting its rules going forward as well. We have a reporter there at the news conference going through all of this, and we'll have a full report for you coming up on Eyewitness News today at noon. Right now, we will return to regular program. We'll see you in about 30 minutes for Eyewitness News at noon.